We're rolling. Okay. All right. So we've just heard a little bit about Yuan Circle. Thank you, Erin, for that wonderful introduction. Here, by the way, is the QR code. So if you didn't get a chance to donate, please do so. It really helps Yuan Circle to be able to produce events like this one. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So we tried to make it easy. You can just take a screenshot or get that QR code and get some money rolling toward their projects, our projects. And hello, my name is Anne Shelton-Crute. I'm a doctor of acupuncture and oriental medicine and licensed acupuncturist in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're sitting here in my clinic in Berkeley. And we're a funky little multidisciplinary spot. We've got acupuncture and Tibetan medicine, heavily informed by our time in India and Japan, and studying for, I think between the two of us clinicians, we've each we've each apprenticed for 25 years each. That's 50 total. So we've been all around the world committed to what we're doing here today. And it's really an honor to be here. That's how you can find me if you want me at some point. Year of the Yang Wood Dragon. Let's see. The thing that I really want to start with is telling you how I met Ming and how what my orientation is toward this work. I studied Polestar with Ming starting in about 2003. And I just was studying Polestar because it's what he was teaching. It wasn't because I was interested in astrology, that's for sure. I didn't want to be an astrologer. I thought that astrologers were weird, and I thought that the whole thing was sus. But after studying formally twice, about 2 years each program, plus hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of case studies, after that with him, then it started to take on a shape of its own. And as it did, I really started to see that, studying Polestar was just sort of like studying anything with Liu Ming. He was just really teaching Confucian view with some layered in Taoism and a little bit of Buddhism as well too. There was plenty of those two things. I just feel like I got like a really strong nugget of Confucianism in the way that I studied with him. And the people who went to school with me knew me as the one who was taking down everybody's birth information and looking at their charts and listening to stories for years. I did this for 12 years. And it wasn't until even with Dr. Bob, one of my mentors, clients, actually, he even let me in to talk to his clients some too. And he was really the one that said, okay, you gotta start to use this a little bit more. And it's just really funny because I got into it because of medicine, because you can't really study medicine unless you understand what a person is. And you can't understand what a person is unless you're looking at what time is. You have to study time to see what an individual is, because we get sick or we feel well within time. Sometimes I feel like when I'm working with a client on the table, they're coming in and I can see everything that led them to the moment that they're in. It's like, everything that led them to the moment of the healing issue that they're in. And you can see exactly where that person's going. But sometimes there's this level of it that maybe doesn't quite make sense, because you're sitting there and it's almost as if you're looking at the effects of stuff that happened maybe from before. I don't know. Ming would sometimes say, well, maybe it's past life stuff, maybe it's ancestral stuff. It's not any of it, and it's not any of those one things. We resist defining how everything works because that's getting too human realm, too brainy about it. But we can feel that there's this cumulative effect of all the different pieces that come together, so that it's a little bit like we're all sort of sitting here hearing the punchline of a joke that we never heard because it was told by someone else in another life, in another time, another dimension, another place. So that's how I got here, because medicine meant that I needed to look at time to understand the patients, and it's just tumbled into a much deeper course of study than I ever thought, that I ever imagined. So I've organized our information today into roughly 4 sections. We've already done the welcome part. And then we're going to jump into the who, what, when, where, why part of Chinese astrology. That was originally going to say, what is Chinese astrology? But then it's like, what is sort of a weird question? Isn't the better question when? Isn't it when is Chinese astrology? But then you can't really have a when without a where, because time and space are intricately linked. You can't separate them at all. So it's when and where is Chinese astrology. But then that tells us what you are, which sort of tells you something about who you are, except I think that who is a little bit silly, because I could give you a whole bio like I just tried to, and it felt really awkward because I don't believe any of it. Like, you know, we are just so slippery. We are changing all the time. Every time we say, oh, this is the truth, whoop, it changes, you know? So it's like, okay, who, forget that. I don't care. It's so temporary. We're all dying soon anyway. So then it's like, what? Okay, human. All right. So Chinese astrology is a technology that's, well, Polestar astrology is useful on a human scale because things tend to unwind in a human on a human timeline. But what we're really talking about today, and also ancestral, it reads bigger patterns as well. But what we're really talking about today is almanac astrology. We're talking about the Tongshu. This is an expanded look at the Tongshu, and you can bring the two together in a really beautiful and dynamic way. So when, where,
Wait.
but, who, and why. We're not like, let's just agree to ignore why, because I don't think that it's possible to figure out the meaning of anything. We can all sense into and agree that there is value to our experience. We don't have to agree on what it is. We don't have to define what it is. So meaning, whatever, just value, resting in that value. And, you know, actually, I forgot how. Maybe that's the best one, how. So then we're going to talk about what, which is the year of the dragon. That's the part you came for. And then everybody's favorite part is going to be who, you. That's when we're going to talk about the overview of the 12 animals. All right, so welcome. All right, so what do we address with astrology? So most people come to astrology to answer tough questions, which, you know, for some reason they don't want to ask their best friend or their spouse or their mom. I don't know, like call up a complete stranger and ask them because there's something objective about it, you know? Except that we're not making a pros and cons list. And we all know that pros and cons lists don't really work anyway, because how do you, like, pros and cons lists don't get to the texture quality of every item that you might list. You can't just tally up, you know, something like that. So the reason that we really come to astrology is for its unique view. It shouldn't be to answer a difficult question. It shouldn't be because our britches are in a bunch or we're feeling urgent about solving for the right way to live. It really should be much more about maybe we've noticed that we have an urgent question and we need to figure out how we want to find a way to relax that tightness, relax that anxious state that we're in. And the view of astrology is really, really why we're here. Which, as I said before, is the view of this astrology is Confucian and Taoist and Buddhist. So it was a Song dynasty technology. It is a Song dynasty technology that utilized math from India and Persia, which was very good at the time. And Ming would chuckle and laugh about it even being called astrology at all, because it's really a calculation. And what we're doing is we're looking at the fact that that nature progresses according to a natural and somewhat reliable rhythm, right? We're looking and we want to understand those rhythms. So just the same way as, you know, we know that it's springtime, it's time to plant. And as soon as we see those sprouts starting to bud, we know that, you know, as we see the little sprout planting, we also know that inside that is also the death of that plant. It's not a surprise to us that everything's going to have an arc, right? And so this is just really fancy way of looking at the natural progressions where we can take into consideration the ancestral waveform that we're riding. Okay. So there's always freedom. I think that a lot of times when Westerners come to astrology who are feeling uncomfortable about it, especially if you have a scientific rational background, which I know I certainly do, what's uncomfortable about astrology is thinking, well, this must have this idea in it that everything's fated and everything's determined. And I don't think that, because I've seen myself make choices. I know I can do things. Well, yes, you can. This view of this astrology recognizes that we can make choices. We are very empowered. And we also have natural tendencies towards certain outcomes, right? Just look at genetic disease, right? If that's not an ancestral waveform, I don't know what is. But also we have boons that we get in our ancestral line too. Like if you come from a family and everyone's, like I once visited a family in India and they're all stone carvers in Atzigat. And I was sitting there with them and they had 7 generations of stone carvers in the same place. Now that was 20 years ago, so it's probably been more than that now. And so let's see, what's my point about that? So when we have a certain predisposed track toward a specific outcome, it helps us know where our strengths are. And when we're having it helps us actually separate our strengths from our fears or anxieties, right? Because sometimes we have this very strong feeling that we really want to do something and we really need to do something. And that might be the calling of a very strong strength in your chart, something you really do need to do. And if once you initiate it, it's not that it won't be difficult, but it will have an energy of its own because you have strength there in your life for it. You have strength there in your chart for it. So even if difficult things arise, you'll be well resourced. You'll know exactly how to handle it. The learning curve is appropriate there rather than in some other part of life. In comparison, there might be other parts of life where we think we might want something, but it's actually a distraction. This is what's great about astrology, because we can help kind of separate those two things. We can see where we're throwing our energy into a black hole and doing something that stressing out about something that's actually a weakness. Although there really isn't so much of a weakness in this system. Even the most challenging stars in a chart are nothing in comparison to the strengthening stars in a chart. So we have freedom to do things where we don't have our strengths, and we have freedom to do things where we do have strengths. And this is a system that kind of gets us out of the very prefrontal cortex, anxious, obsessive way of analyzing our lives, and lets us drop down into feeling our lives and moving through and living our lives. So we can sort of push and glide in that way. So ultimately, Chinese Polestar Astrology and Tongshu Astrology is about just working with nature and just learning who and what we are. And working with nature it's the Chinese conversation about ethics. Now, if you say ethics in America, then people kind of squirm and get uncomfortable, because you're either going to have a conversation that's very shamey with a list of shoulds and shouldn'ts, or you're going to have a conversation that's very liberal, very anything goes, very no rules, if you're talking about ethics. But either one of those approaches to ethics is not particularly relaxed. It's not particularly natural. And that's not what I'm talking about today. Chinese ethics are simple. They're not dogmatic. They're based on the natural rhythms in nature. There's an earth wisdom foundation to Chinese view. So it's very mind your business. It's very open up and be free and do whatever you want to do. But if it's winter, it's probably a good idea to rest, you know? And if it's summer, well, you know, like maybe if it's spring, throw a party. So that's kind of what Chinese ethics are. And just to illustrate this point, because this is something that that Ming would talk about, you know, in Song Dynasty, China is kind of a utopian vision of what society can be, of community-centered ideals. And so you know, Song Dynasty China, when Chinese Polestar Astrology arose, and please understand that Song Dynasty China is fairly recent, and it's built on culture and systems that were far, far more ancient, indigenous to China, and also imported in from other areas. So there's a very rich tapestry of human thought encapsulated in this way of thinking. But in the Song Dynasty China, when Chinese Polestar was developed, there was a lot of new thought and technology. There was a lot of renewed vigor around Confucianism. The Neo-Confucianism movement happened then. There was like a printing press with movable type and gunpowder, and there was such incredible economic prosperity and so many visitors from afar bringing in ideas from Europe and, I mean, everywhere. It was just an amazing thoroughfare for information that was informing the thought of this time that we see in the view that I'm sharing today. And the civil servants of this time, as it's very famous, the civil servants of this time had to sit an exam to be able to qualify to work for the government. And in order to qualify, their education required them to study 4 different subjects, not least of which was well, astrology was probably part of it, but maybe not directly as astrology. They had to study philosophy and history. Of course, it makes sense to study philosophy and history if you're gonna be part of governance of an enormous population, right? But here's the interesting thing: they also had to be able to play a musical instrument, and they also had to be able to throw oracle. So they were really asking of their society and their officials in the society to be able to live in a very integrated body, speech, mind, 3 moving center kind of way of approaching life. And I think that's really notable, right? So so when we think about the auspice of the year, you know, this isn't a brainy analytical conversation, and it's not a wishy-washy new age conversation. The intention here is to present the information that you need to be able to work with and harmonize yourself with the chi available around you, so that you can live in a body, speech, mind integrated manner yourselves. Okay. So let's get into it. It's gonna get more fun here. Yes, question.
Why do you say body, speech, mind, as opposed to, like, I don't know, heart, body, mind?
That's fine too. Yeah.
Is that the same?
Uh-oh. Are we good? We're good. Okay. The audience member is asking, why are we using body, speech, mind versus heart,
Or
mind, heart, body, or something like that? And I'm just simply answering, you can use any of those. I'm just loosely using the 3. We could use the 5. We could use the 9. We could use the 12. You know, we could like go on and on. I'm not fixating on. I'm kind of using Vajrayana Buddhist terminology a little bit low key, because Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche was one of my teachers, and I feel comfortable doing that when I'm speaking about Ming's work, because I also know that that Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche was close to Ming's heart too. So I feel a little bit of permission to step out of China in that way. But yeah. Yes, and another question.
When is this period? When is the dynasty?
Song Dynasty. like, gosh, 900-ish to, yeah, common era. But they were, but they had, but they were informed by and had very beautiful, rich records and continuous stream of a lot of different threads of wisdom. I'm not going to say this is like a continuous stream of wisdom going back to one source. Ming was quite clear that, you know, there's a limit to that kind of thinking, you know, but we have a lot of amazing, beautiful texts from, you know, going back before the Common Era that we still use today in Chinese medicine and Chinese astrology, which Ming did, I do want to say, Ming did say that Chinese astrology and acupuncture and Chinese medicine were sister sciences that you can use together. There's some confusion I've seen a little bit in the Polestar community where some astrologers maybe don't agree. I just want to say that I think we even have it on recording that that Ming thought that there was a very intimate connection between medicine and astrology. And so some of the concepts, there's some integrity to the view, although there were many, many, many different schools and so many different indigenous tribes within China, and you know, lots of different moments of canonization that maybe swept some out or edited in a way that maybe we feel a little sad about at times, but in general, there's a very coherent cultural going far back, but that's when the Song Dynasty is. Okay, good. Anybody, anyone on chat? Adam, are you watching chat? Yes, we're good. Okay, good. All right, so let's talk about, so I wrote on here on this slide, I wrote Year of the Yang Wood Dragon, Qi quality so-called dragon. So we're kind of talking about dragon, and actually we are directly, especially with Dragon Year, we are talking about dragons, but the 12 animals, they're Qi qualities, they're Qi characteristics that have been assigned, they've been kind of labeled with an animal quality so that we can sort of remember what the Qi nature is about. So this is the Yang Wood Dragon, Qi nature. And it begins today. New moon where we are was yesterday. However, it begins today because we're on one Earth. You know, so lunar calculations going to one specific, or solar going to one specific, they matter for some parts, but not for this. So, all right. Okay. So first of all, let's rewind. Where did we just come from? We just came from the year of the Yin water rabbit. And we're moving into the Yang wood dragon. Yin water rabbit, everybody. How about that? So it was a year very much about friendship, about alliances, and you know, I think that when we entered into Yin water rabbit territory, everyone was heaving a sigh of relief because we really went through some very, very challenging years coming up to water rabbit. But water rabbit's so big that I know that when I gave my talk last year, I couldn't promise a smooth ride with water rabbit. But what I could say, and what I think did happen, is that a lot of friendships got reevaluated, got renewed, became deepened, and also some pacts were created, other pacts were destroyed. You know, and that water nature underneath that rabbit year was just so pervasive and so deep. And also water is the element in Chinese thought that allows things to really kind of go back. It's the deep depths of the ocean. I'm not talking about the literal ocean, although that too. I'm talking about that unknowable, mysterious, deep yin. It's actually, and for people who I know, I've got some people in the room and I think online who are students of Jyotish and of different Vedic sciences. Water element in Chinese medicine, the elements in the two systems they have some overlap, but it's overlap because it's the same reality that we're in, obviously. So they're going to ultimately touch on everything, but it's just arranged a little differently. So the water rabbit, boy, pacts created and destroyed, right? So marriages were formed but also dissolved, and or renegotiated. Relationships were really renegotiated. It was a year to ask us, who am I doing this with? And it really reminded even people who are typically solo actors, like I need my group to be safe, you know? So it was a year about communication, about collaboration, and it also was about it was essential for getting us into where we are now, because you need to have your group to be able to go into the Yang Wood Dragon. You got to know who you're doing this with. You got to, like, in order to figure out what we're doing, we have to know who we're doing it with. Right? So Rabbit organized the team that makes the new leadership possible, that's revealed by Dragon. And when I say leadership, I don't mean a singular person. That's kind of the old way of thinking about leadership. I'm not talking about like a pyramid structure with somebody at the top. I'm talking about like leadership, not even a personality, but leadership can be defined by, like, say, a new way of thinking, a new way of living. I'm led by this new way of living, you know? So we're determining, what that way is going to be is revealed to us in the Yang Wood Dragon year. And the dissolution energy, the depth in the Yin Water Rabbit, the depth of relationships has been very, very profound. I mean, really deep connections. But you also may have found closure with people who maybe weren't showing up. And that closure might not have even had a period on the end of the sentence. You might have just been able to, in a water rabbit year, allow the fact that that person or those people really aren't showing up for you be the closure that you were looking for, right? And you know, in the absence of a renewal, right? And maybe renewal is possible in this. This is certainly, this year that we're coming into is a year about renewal. And even just, you know, just to say one more word about the Yin Water Rabbit year, boy, alliances, like politically, look at the movements within affinity groups, right? So like how many people have found very strong community in support of human rights in Gaza, or, you know, Jewish people having to sort of declare how they feel within their family, how they feel about Zionism. You know, I'm just saying it's the same mechanism. I'm not really trying to talk about that subject right now. I'm just pointing to how this isn't just about our friendships in our home, or, you know, who we talk to, who we go to lunch with. You know, I'm not just talking about our families. I'm talking about like big movements, big alliances too. And the groundswell of support for different ways of living, as exemplified by that example, right? Like having to choose jumping into one rabbit to burrow or another. Okay, so let's see. So the Yang Wood Dragon in the sexagenary cycle, the symbol for dragon is Chen. And this is the thumbnail sketch of it right here, what I'm going to say. The symbol for dragon is Chen, and the association is the third lunar month, or 7 to 9 a.m. So what we're saying is that dragon energy is like the third lunar month energy. You know, everyone in this room at least has been alive long enough to kind of know what the third lunar month feels like. The dates are approximately, like this year, it's April 10th through May 8th or something like that. So that early mid-April through early May time, that quality, that way the air smells, that way you feel outside. And it doesn't matter if you live in a tropical climate or in the Arctic. It doesn't matter really whether you have 4 seasons with a cold, heavy winter or a hot summer or not. It doesn't really matter, because we're talking about the portion of yin and yang in the environment. We're talking about the portion of available yang qi. All right, yang is our is that rightness, it's that activity. All right, so the third lunar month you know, when things are sprouting, when the days are longer. Now we're already technically in spring on the lunisolar calendar. And I know that I probably have listeners out there who are sitting and looking at a thick layer of snow outside, who are probably like, don't tell me that it's spring right now when it's the beginning of April, lady. Like, come on, it's not. But it is. And actually, if you think about it, look at how like snowshoe hares, they change their coat. They're white in the winter and then they're brown in the summer. And climate change is a really big disaster for them because their coat's going to change, and it has nothing to do with temperature. You know, it has to do with the portion of light in the sky, right? This is why natural medicine works no matter where you are on the globe, because it's not about like for Ayurveda, everyone's like, oh, but you know, when is autumn? Because we don't have autumn here. We totally have autumn here. You know, so this kind of thing, it's pretty important. So yes, the movement of yin and yang in the cycles is equal opportunity no matter where you live. And this wood dragon is about the third lunar month. We can also say it's like 7 to 9 a.m. The equivalent, if this year were a 24-hour clock, we are like the clock just turned 3 a.m. So this is 3 a.m. of the year. Of the year. And wood, jia means yang wood phase versus yi wood phase. Wood itself is yang within yin. So if you imagine like the Taiji diagram, the yin yang symbol. Okay, you've got like the white one going up here. That's yang. That's the building of yang. We're right here. It started right, and we're going here. And then we get here. We're going to be at summer solstice, and then yin, the black one, is going to be birthed, and it's going to come down, and then we're going to be down at like winter solstice, right? So it's a little calendar symbol, and the dot in each side is when you're in the deepest part of winter. That's the birth of summer, because you can't get any more wintry. Summer is like encapsulated. It's a little nugget in it. It's kind of like when you're in midnight, you know, you're just clock opposite from noon. It's right through there. You can feel it kind of, right? So, and same. So, same with noon and summer. So the wood element is that yang within yin. It's the little white dot in the black part. That's what wood element is. It's the seed. It's the seed underground. How audacious is it that seed, which, you know, 2 weeks before looked, you wouldn't really be able to discriminate it between a pebble, you know, unless you like went down and closely looked, you know, like little leaf litter and dirt and trash and muck. And then there's a little seed, the audacity of it to swell and get excited and start to move out of nowhere, and then poof, bust out a little sprout underground where no one even knows about it, and then push up from a world of complete darkness into a world of like wind blowing on it, and it's little too, right? Wind blowing on it, and sun beating down on it, and rain coming. I mean, you know, like a lot of sprouts don't make it. Because think about how much there is to do to go from wood through fire to earth. Earth is the fruition element, right? And then we get metal, the seed, and then water, the rotting log with the sprouts coming up. So that's the cycle. The yang wood dragon is the laughing dragon. It's confident, it's ambitious, it's proactive. What do I want to say about oh, I know what I want to say about wood. Not only is this seed hidden. Okay, here's another example. This is a good one. Think about in springtime when you're walking outside and you look at a tree and you're like, whoa, all of a sudden, it seems like overnight, there's a whole quarter to a half of an inch extra redwood on the tip of that redwood, you know, branch. And it was green all year long. Redwoods don't lose their leaves, right? Same thing with deciduous trees. You see this bud and it's just like, it's just there. Like all this little like leaves are about to just go, you know, and where did it come from? It just came out of nowhere, right? That's wood energy. It feels like it comes out of nowhere. It's so fast. It's so inspired. It's so alive. Now take away the tree. Take away the seed. That impetus, that's wood, okay? So when people say, oh, wood is like trees, and it's like, no. The 5-phase element, the 5-element model, it's a physics model. It's a way of understanding how things flow from this to that. And you can see it across phenomena in the natural and unnatural world, right? Because change happens in a regular manner. This is why astrology works. So it's you know, I think that sometimes people think that when they hear 5-element models, they're thinking like, oh, this is a cute antique periodic table or something. It's not. It's not. So wood is that magic sprinkle that returns things back to life from death after a fallow period. Its freshness itself, its color is Qing, that blue-green color. Yeah. So let's keep going. Okay, I made a slide about the why we want to use a lunisolar year versus a Gregorian year. I don't want to spend time on this, though it's so tempting to. I'll just say one thing about it. The Gregorian year asks us to think about seasons starting when you're already halfway through it, and this is really important, okay? So if we're told that summer begins when it's summer solstice, how could summer be beginning when it's summer solstice? Somebody tell me. How when we have the sun at its zenith and we have the longest day of the year, how can we say that's the beginning of summer? It doesn't mean it's that it can't get hotter. It's just it's already, we're in the middle of summer when that happens, right? And why does that matter? It's like, okay, well, who cares? Like, it's just a matter of naming. The reason it matters is because everyone is like on Facebook or Instagram, happy springtime, it's vernal equinox. Like, no, vernal equinox means that we're halfway through spring. It means you need to be able to feel that spring starts now so that you can take advantage of. Everyone who's ever had a garden or lived around farming knows that if you try to plant if you like want to hang out in a nice garden and you try to start planting when it feels good to be outside, I mean, it always feels good to be outside in a way, but you know, when like you want to start enjoying it and that's when you start planting, you know, you're not going to get any plants, right? But it's the same like this in our lives. If we're telling ourselves that summer didn't start until summer solstice, we've already lost half of our year. And if we have something that we need to change about our lives, then we've missed all of the opportunities that came before we got to the midpoint of that scenario. We've lost all those opportunities to recognize and work with it and have a conversation and tweak it and change it before, I mean, you got to call it sometimes. Some things, sometimes a dog won't hunt and you just have to like change course in your life. But when we have a calendar given to us by our government that we're all on, that is gaslighting us about when what we're doing actually started and whether what's happening is actually happening or not. And we can't see that the thing that's happening now is happening until it's already halfway done. Then that's training our minds to not trust ourselves and not feel change when it's new and respond to it. Okay. There, I talked about it anyway. You like that? Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
That's my, and it's kind of important to me because it's one of the main things that I do with acupuncture is tune people to the seasons. Because if you're tripping because something's off, how many times do people go to the doctor because they're like, I know something's wrong, and their regular doctor says, you're fine, go home. But they're like, no, I know something's wrong. That's this phase, and we can treat that. And even if we don't really feel like something's wrong, when we're always attuning ourselves to the season, it doesn't have to be with acupuncture. It can be with yoga or qigong or I don't know, anything. It can also just be through experiencing the love of being alive, not in the God realmy way, but in a real way, like we have bodies and sometimes they're uncomfortable way, right? When we attune ourselves to the season, then we radiate, we express more health, we feel more confident because we know what we are, because we can feel what we are. Because what we are is, remember, it's when we are. and where we are. Yeah. And then we don't have to make a bunch of decisions for our lives because nature's just carrying us. Like we go to sleep when it's night and we get up when it's morning more easily, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so year of the dragon. Okay. Fresh innovation. It's a fresh, innovative year. It's a self-confident year. It's a year for big thinking. It's an ambitious year. There's this spring nature has strong teenager energy, meaning it's not overly self-reflective, right? So the native element of dragon is earth. So this is a wood dragon year, which but it really wants to be an earth year, but it can't be an earth year because we're a wood year. Except for the thing about dragon years is that you can't really take apart a dragon. Like dragons are so enormous that they can't be confined to a single year. I can remember 12 years ago when Ming taught about the water dragon year, he said, this year is going to rush in right away in the spring, right away, no transition period. Like Lunar New Year starts, boom, you're in the year, you're going to feel it. And I remember thinking, it's water element. Water element is the element of like winter. Or don't we want to say that the year comes to fruition in the winter? No, because it's dragon. It's dragon energy, so it's big. So if a water dragon year starts right away in the spring in wood season, what do you think a wood dragon year does in spring? I mean, this is really enormous energy that is shifting here. It's very big energy to use, and it's very fast. It's very eager. It's that May energy. It doesn't really have breaks, so you're gonna have to try to apply them yourselves. It's the beginning of a really big cycle. It's the conclusion of a big cycle. I actually think that this is going to be the year that, you know how, I mean, we had the pandemic and we've had so many climate crises and geopolitical things. And before that, I mean, everyone was so free. I mean, I know we have listeners on our call here who are not in America, but just indulge the America-centric moment for me here for a second. Everyone was so freaked out when Hillary and Trump were doing that election year. Everyone just thought, this is bananas. I can't believe how crazy it is. It can't get any crazier. And then like, look at how crazy things have been since. And I think that everyone sort of knows that we're not like going back to anything, but I think we're going to start to see that it isn't even going to be about, well, it just continues being crazy. Okay. It probably is going to continue being crazy, but it's going to continue being crazy with like there's going to be the beginning of a shape on it. Right. And so this young wood dragon year is going to, like, a bunch of ideas are going to be thrown out about what the shape is, like seeds, and we won't know which ones are really going to take, but some of what we see is going to be the thing that when we look back at this time, we'll see that this is when we really saw what was happening. And I think that we'll all be able to let go a little bit of the before thinking, and we'll be able to get on board with whatever we're doing next. It presents a lot of opportunities for maybe getting real about solving some problems that we have in our world. And it's because this young wood dragon energy is so audacious, but it's also vulnerable. It's negotiable. It's wood. You can like, I mean, not negotiable like in a intellectual way at all, because we're talking about dragon, and dragon energy is very spirited, very selfish. So negotiable meaning, oh, okay, someone's putting this out into the field. We'll like add that to the field, and whoa, now they're dancing. Like it, you know, it's it's we're gonna see like a lot of different things working together to figure out what's coming next. Right. And there's a precedent for this large scale change. But before I talk about it, before I get into the, before I talk about it, I want to say a little bit more about what this is. So the teenager energy, I want to go back to that. Teenagers are interesting because they remember their newness and their inexperience, but they feel really big and capable. So I think we're going to see a lot of projects that get started without being fully considered. It'll be kind of like a fake it till you make it. Now or never will be in. YOLO, you only live once, ideas will be in, and wait and see is going to be out. It could be a little bit erratic. There will be foolhardy attempts at starting projects that will affect large populations, and they're not necessarily all going to be altruistic, but some of them certainly will be. But the impetus for change is strong, and there's an emotional urgency in a wood year. Okay, so but since true dragon nature goes beyond this year, applying the brakes a little bit whenever we can, or seeing to our rest and seeing to our self-care is going to be something to help tame that runaway dragon quality. So, this dragon year invites us to participate on the grand scale. And the precedent for the way that things are going to change that I was referencing a moment ago, we saw this back in the last wood dragon year, which was 1964. So, you know, if you say, yeah, we have people here to remember it. So if you, yeah, the smiles on on the faces of some of the people in the room right now. You know, if I say the 60s, you all know what I mean, right? But historians trace that very much back to 1964. 1964 was the quintessential year that kind of made the 60s. And Erin, who you heard speak earlier, she was the one who found this, and I think it's brilliant. The historians are looking at that as a division point. So in this dragon year, there's going to be a before and an after. And we might not know in the dragon year what that before and after will be, but we're going to be living it. We're going to be exposed to it. So it's important for us to be open and flexible in our thinking, and not too stuck in our mindset about what we think, what we're so sure the world is. Because dragon is so much bigger, and it allows us, since we are surrounded by and suffused with this dragon quality, even right now, we have an opportunity to experience ourselves as much bigger than we ever thought that we could be, right? So 1964 was the year that we had like hippies versus squares and liberal versus conservative. That didn't exist in the same way before. And we had like old versus new. It was the dawn of youth culture. It was the start of when young people were guiding music and fashion. It wasn't really like that before. Can someone attest to that? Okay, Belinda attests. Okay. So literally, okay. So this is something that's very interesting. The way that the elements work. So we have 12 kinds of animals. This is telling us that there are 12 types of chi. And if that feels too silly to you and not like it really means anything, it's like, remember when you used to take like cosmopolitan quizzes and you would circle A, B, or C, and then you would like add up how many were A, how many were B, and how many were C to get like the answer of, you know, what's your love? What's your sex style? You know, I don't know, whatever, something like that. You remember this stuff? And it's just like, that's silly. That's not, obviously it's silly, but I can remember when I first started looking at natural medicine, I was like, this is silly like that. This is like Cosmo quiz, like, you know. What do you mean 5-element acupuncture? I don't practice 5 elements. I mean, we use the 5 elements, but what do you mean Ayurveda and 3 doshas? Like, I just didn't understand how profound useful generalizations could be. I mean, look at COVID. Like, we can do so much in Chinese medicine for long COVID, and you know, we don't bring people who have COVID into our clinic, but we give them herbs, and we can do, because we're looking at the patterns, you know. And my teacher, he treated AIDS before there were solutions for AIDS. So useful generalization, learning how to recognize rhythms in nature is incredibly important stuff, right? So when we're looking at this, back to the wood dragon, we're not really going to see the projects that start now. We're not really going to see their fulfillment until around 2048. Okay. because that's when Earth dragon comes. Because remember, the native element of dragon is Earth, right? So we're here in wood dragon year. So 1964 was the wood dragon year. How much of the policy of the ideas and fresh insights that we got in 1964 do you feel stabilized and was the norm by 1988? Like probably a lot of things, you know? And then there were problems with it, and then like until 2012, and then falling apart, and here we are again in a wood dragon year. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Oh, thank you. Oh, oh, this tea is so nice. I'm drinking pu'er tea, and it's very good. Shout out to Michael Hanberry, who is our tea sponsor today. Okay. So yes, 2048. So there's going to be a before and an after, but we won't know what it is until a lot after. And some of us might not even live to see like really what it's going to turn into, because then really what we're doing now is going to really come to fruition in 2072. But the real secret is that, you know, I said there are 12 animals, right? So that says there are 12 types of chi. And if that's not interesting enough for you, well, then multiply that by 5 and you've got 60, because you've got each of the 5 elements for each of the 12 animals. But then if that's not enough for you, then you multiply that again by 2 yin and yang, and you've got 120. So the 120-year cycle from now, you know, it's we have the capacity to really think big and really make some changes and initiate things that can help a lot of people. Not all years are like this, you know. We're not usually talking about this kind of, like, you know, the last couple of years of talks that I've given, we're not doing this. And there's a Chinese saying it's about the water dragon, but there's a Chinese saying I learned from Ming where he said, no one has ever seen the head and the tail of the water dragon. And this is the water dragon's baby. Wood dragon baby and it's still enormous. It's still enormous. You'll see. It's enormous like 1964 was. And enormous like 2072 will be. So these big cycles, this grand scale, this is what dragon is offering us to participate in. And remember that for a dragon, that's not a long time. So I'm talking about how in springtime, there's going to be a lot pouring in and it might feel a little bit rushed or a little bit urgent, but actually dragons live on much bigger scale and slower waveforms of time. So it's, so you can actually tune into that. You can tune into that. Okay. All right. Let's look at this. This is interesting. These are the recent dragon years. So some of you in the audience who are dragons, you can find yourself on here and see what kind of dragon you are. 2012 was a water dragon year. Before that, in 2000 was metal dragon year. Before that, 88, that was earth dragon year, as we said. 76, fire dragon, 64, wood dragon. The previous wood dragon year that we had that was a young wood dragon year was 1904. The same year that Salvador Dali, Robert Oppenheimer, Joan Crawford, and Dr. Seuss were born. And in 1964, we got Kamala Harris, Keanu Reeves, Lenny Kravitz, and a bunch of other people. In 1964, we got the mods versus the rockers. The Beatles arrived in America. The Beatles were already really big. There was like a whole rabbit chi thing I talked about with the Beatles last year, but they arrived in America in 1964. Oh, this is really important. Muhammad Ali changed his name in 1964, right? So like, what happens that allows someone to make a choice like that? You know, a public figure like that, right? Huge race riots in 1964. The Civil Rights Act was signed. The Vietnam War intensified. It had already started, obviously, but it intensified. Oh, the Surgeon General issued a report on smoking. That's a big change. That's a big embracing of like, that's a reality check, you know, saying, hey guys, maybe smoking isn't really so good for us after, you know, the American economy was built on the tobacco plant since 1612 or something. Like that's really powerful. I know it's just a little thing. Surgeon General, it's written on the thing, whatever. No, it's a big deal. Martin Luther King Jr. won the Nobel Prize. Jean-Paul Sartre declined the Nobel Prize, refusing to be institutionalized. So this is wood dragon, all right? In 1904, so go back to when it was young wood dragon before, we got the New York City subway station. The Panama Canal project started. The World's Fair in St. Louis, which seems sort of silly and quaint to us now, but it was a big deal back then. You know what it was celebrating? It was celebrating the Louisiana Purchase.
So what was?
The World's Fair in St. Louis in 1904 was celebrating the Louisiana Purchase. Yeah. There were a lot of different, I'm not going to go through all of them, but there were a lot of different alliances. There were some wars and things. Basically, I know one thing I noticed in my research, I mean, there's always a bunch of people die and a bunch of people are born. There's always wars and things, but the international movements and changes and also peacemaking that I see in like happen a lot in dragon years. Like there's like an opportunity to revise and an opportunity to think in a more comprehensive, larger way in a dragon year. And so you see it reflected in the politics of the time. Oh, the other thing that happened in 1904 that I think affects all of us now to this day is that the teddy bear was invented. So, all right. Previous dragon years. Okay, 2012, that was water dragon year. That was the year the world ended. You'll all recall, right? The Mayan calendar ended. And then in 2000, metal dragon year, that was when the world ended before that, because it was Y2K and all the computers were going to go. So there's like a little bit of a panic that happens every dragon year. Like, ooh, what's going to happen? There's something in it, like right now, like, okay, did World War III just start? I don't know, like maybe it did. Is it similar? Maybe it might be similar to that kind of anxiety that people felt around Y2K and around the Mayan calendar. I mean, it's different, but there's something there. In 1988, it even happened in 1988. This is good. There was a NASA engineer who published a book called 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Be in 1988. It sold 4.5 million copies and was disseminated free of charge to even more than that. So people bought it. The world didn't end. The world's not going to end. Even if World War III did start, the world's not going to end. You know, one thing that also that dragon shows us is that we're never going to have a one size fits all solution. We can't be naive and we can't be naive around our idealism about getting X for all. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try. We can still try because even if we can get X for more, that's good. Or if we can figure out how to harmonize X so that it is sustainable, so that more people, so that something is, I don't know, you hear what I'm saying, right? But the idealism around, that this is a dragon teaching from Ming. So we can kind of let go of paranoia about things ending, and we can also let go of unnatural idealism about creating a standard for everyone and figuring out how to work with what we have and do what we can and learn to make peace with what we can. I'm not saying to be apathetic about atrocities, but the lesson of the dragon is about how there's something a little bigger going on, and we have a chance to tap into that. Okay. So, let's see. Here's a list of famous dragons. I went back into the history books. Y'all in the room are going to want to pass around the notes, because did you know that Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a dragon? Kant was a dragon. Harriet Tubman and Susan B. Anthony were dragons. Florence Nightingale. Freud. Helen Keller. She's a fave. A lot of really interesting dragon personalities we've got here. And then modern dragons, here we have on the next slide, we've got John Lennon. I don't know why it sounds like I'm really into the Beatles. I mean, you can't not like the Beatles, but I'm not. got into the Beatles. It's just they had such important impact. And
Everyone in the chat loves the Beatles too.
okay, good. I feel weird about like having the Beatles come up so many times in my talk. Thank you. Adam says that everyone in the chat loves the Beatles. So here we are again. Yeah, John Lennon, Bruce Lee, Martin Luther King Jr., Rihanna. Putin, actually, if that's a preview for our geopolitical portion of our conversation, Putin is a dragon. Che Guevara, a dragon. Some of these I already said. Yeah, Pablo Neruda was a dragon. Count Basie. Okay, so let's look a little bit at these categories. We're gonna breeze through the following categories. We're gonna start with the public sphere. So in the public sphere, like business, politics kind of stuff, it's a chance for it's a time for big thinking, and there's going to be a lot of tendency to take big risks, and whether those risks are good or not really depends on who you are and what animal you are, or just forget what animal you are, like just who you are. And how much you can withstand risk, but there's going to be a lot of excitement. In fact, I already see on social media people saying, Wood Dragon is so big and it's so risky and it's so fiery. It's actually not fiery, actually, but it's so big. And there's going to just be like so much opportunity to do something really risky, but do you dare? Do you have the courage to? And I'm just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like reel it back. I mean, yes, we do have an opportunity to feel something big, but it doesn't necessarily mean to take a risk, because that wood nature is very volatile. Although we can, if we have really strong earth element in our constitution, and we can, then we actually do have a chance to look at how things do go for a longer term. So, maybe take a risk, maybe not, depends on you. So I do think that in the public sphere relevance, I want to say that this is an important year for complexity theory to shine and systems thinking. Anytime there's like a multidisciplinary approach to problem solving, and even just forget problem solving, a multidisciplinary approach to experiencing your reality, that's good. This is a year for niche thought to kind of like wind down a little bit. We're seeing the limitation of having highly specialized individuals. That's part of the old way of thinking. We really want to be able to kind of open up a little bit more and look more broadly. Okay. So we'll see multidisciplinary solutions in the healthcare world as well. It's the same with natural medicine, right? It's the same way that, you want your natural medicine doctor to be someone who really understands their theory to be able to treat you, rather than going to a specialist for like fertility, and then a different specialist for insomnia, and a different specialist for psychodynamics, and a different specialist for this and that. Like, you want to be able to kind of like get out away from the branches and those like that bag of tricks thinking, and go down underneath that, especially when we move into snake year. We'll really be diving down and in. So this is a good year to work on your health in a more broad way, and understand that that's a very appropriate way to work with specific kinds of ailments. Even though it seems like, oh, this is so specific, I have to find a specialist. Well, maybe there might be a limit there. There might be a blind spot. So just think about it. Education, more and more teaching in subject integrated ways to help kids have, be able to think in a more diverse way, have more fun, become better problem solvers, become inquisitive and curious about the world. It's a good year for curiosity. Environmental management and science clearly needs an interdisciplinary approach. Let's talk about relationships. Okay. So Dragon, she is selfish. So like, I think the thing I want to say first is, hey, single people, maybe this is the year that the world won't think that you're broken and tell you that you're broken all the time. Maybe we can start from now on not telling people who are single that something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. it's great and totally acceptable and wonderful, in fact, to be single. And I think that actually it traces back to that conversation about the 60s, because we saw legislation that gave women rights that they didn't have in the 60s, and to be able to obtain divorces and get out from underneath relationships that weren't healthy for them. But we've been living with, you know, I mean, how long have women lived with a stigma if they're single or divorced or something like that? And I think that Wood Dragon is a year that people can finally go, oh, we don't need that anymore. That's an old way of thinking. That's outmoded. And also whatever kinds of non-traditional relationships, we could see those. That would make sense to see more of that and with what's going on these days. So yes, so but for people who are in relationships, it's not necessarily a bad year for relationships. We just did a really big rabbit year for where we firmed up our relationships and dove in deeper. So Dragon Year is a good time to kind of like hold hands and figure out what the new vision, what the fresh vision is going to be. So, yes. In health, we want to watch out for our for the liver, because that's the wood element organ. And liver also means nervous system, and it means psycho-emotionally, it's going to talk about anger, but also not necessarily just anger, also depression, partly because the spleen stomach is the other indicated system in this particular year. So spleen stomach issues, we can heal them, but they also can get worse in this year. Liver, we can heal it, but it also can get worse. We just have to be a little bit cautious around that. And then spiritually, this is a year to try to figure out how to manage your energy. Wood Dragon Year is a time that, you know, there will be new opportunities. But Dragon Year is so big that it'll be really hard to manage your energy if you don't have a lot of practice in doing it. Still, I'm not going to say don't try. And dragon energy, like I said before, it's spiritually speaking, dragon energy is so big, it's a good way to connect with how much bigger you are than you really might experience normally. So also inner work is indicated because wood element is fresh and new and arising fresh each day, but it's also hidden. So there's something there as well. And also slowing down is a practice in this year in itself that we could say is spiritual, even though it's not the same thing as sitting on the cushion and doing your sadhana. And then this is a big one, spiritually speaking, express generosity, please, as a practice. We should express generosity and we should put our bodies into it. Like, you know, go to the shoreline and pick up the trash and, you know, or go and ladle the soup for people who need it and feel, because when you do that, you'll feel the way that you're helping the earth, and you'll feel the way that you're helping others, and you'll feel yourself as part of this larger experience, because dragon is so big. It probably won't feel very good in a dragon year to sit shut up at home, you know. So yeah, that's what we have to say about that. Okay. Coordinating our chi. In terms of smaller cycles, think about how we've got wood snake is going to be next. So whatever inspiration arises in this wood dragon year, we're going to be taking that down and in. So wood dragon is up and out, and then snake is going to be a down and in, like a personal alchemy year and a refinement process. In society at large, it's going to be a refinement time on whatever is born this year. So even if, you know, even if we do get some half-baked plans and things get started that maybe aren't working very well because the kinks aren't sorted, we'll be able to go in and evaluate it in a different kind of way in a snake year. And then come fire horse year, the next year, the work will get a lot more serious. will really be building. It also could be a contentious year because it's fire force energy. And then after that, fire goat. So we got two fire years coming up in a row here. But they're in the barnyard, horse and goat. The public will experience broad results by the time we get to goat year, and it will be informed by what we're doing now. So so that's the smaller cycles for the next couple of years, and then getting even smaller to this year. It'll be hard to say no to overdoing, especially in spring, but try. Just don't blow out. And it'll come fast and hard and be volatile. In the summer and autumn, pump the brakes. It's a time to be more cautious. In the summer and autumn. Winter can feel very expansive again. And this is the key though. There are opportunities for recalibration between the seasons. Why? Because Earth element is a 2-week window between the other 4 seasons. We have 5 seasons for 5 elements. And Earth is that weird, it's not really winter, it's not really spring, it's the last 2 weeks of each little seasonal part. So that's going to be, if you're like, whoa, things are really getting out of control, utilize that time. So let's get into the animals. How are we doing on the chat? How are you out there, my television neighbors? All right. Overview of the 12 animals. We're going to look at the chi profiles. Okay, here we go. We're going to start with rat. Rat is interesting because it's a good year for rats. Do we have any rats in the room? Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Hey, Adam, can you look at the pages? Can people like thumbs up if they're a rat for us, please? I want to know, like, give me a percentage. Everybody tell your screen or use the thumbs up thing, or if you're a rat. While I drink tea. Okay.
Nobody's biting yet.
Nobody's biting. Okay, that's fine. Well, we have some rats in the room. That's actually kind of a high percentage, I would say. We'll see how it goes. So, so for rats, this is not a bad year. Big energy doesn't freak out. Rats, it's because they know how to take apart a massive project and break it down into little bite-sized pieces, just like any other barn. So wood dragon here is just another barn to chew apart. And also rats work alone. Dragons also like to work alone. They're very independent. Rats, they're independent, but they know that they're part of a group. That's the difference. Dragons don't know that they're part of a group. There are like groups of dragons, actually. I know people are like, what? It's like, I wonder if it's, sometimes when I think about dragon chi, I think about how, like, when I try to like swat a fly and I know that they saw my hand coming for like so long, and I wonder about the scale differential between like the fly and me and the dragon. It's like, whoa, one dragon is already such a big deal. Families of dragons? Wait a second, So, yeah, and I actually it didn't make it into the talk. But it did make it into the field, if you will. Because I grabbed my copy of the Huainanzi when I was writing the lecture. I just was like, I'm gonna need some inspiration to get into figuring out what I'm gonna say to these people. And I brought the Huainanzi and I had it in my bag. Like, why am I carrying around this book? This is ridiculous. And then I finally decided, okay, I'm just gonna open it. Why did I bring this book? At least I will have opened it if I open it. So I open it and I open it to the page about dragons. And I got to read a bunch of, really interesting, really stuff that was written a really long time ago about who the dragons are and why they're important to us and why the Chinese love them, and not just the Chinese. I think that there are dragons all around the world. Unfortunately, we have this idea that we need to slay them in the West. I think that's just because, anytime there's big energy, we say it's a demon, and I would say that's just like the West and Christianity, but it's not, because it happened even in India, a lot. Look at the story of many of the dark goddesses and how, they were revered symbols that suddenly at a certain point in history, when the way that, culture changed, we had to take these like very, very powerful feminine goddess figures, and we had to say that they were like scary or bad or dangerous. It's so when you think about the necessity to slay dragons, think about, your attachment to needing to control things. Maybe don't worry about controlling things so much. Maybe the world's safe. Maybe the world's safe, even if it's really big and uncontrollable. Yes, we have a question.
Is there significance to the dragon being the only mythological animal?
The question is there significance to the dragon being the only mythological?
Or is it purely just because she?
Well, okay, well, first, I'm gonna just throw out there that I'm contesting that it's a mythological creature. Yeah, but also it is. It's both. It's both though, because it also, it's something, it takes pieces of all the animals. So it can fly like the bird. It has scales like the snake. It is fast like the horse. It's strong like the ox. It's the composite. It's the composite animal. So in that way, yes, it is a mythological creature, and we have both in our tradition. So the presence or absence of real dragons doesn't take away from the fact that we still can learn from the mythopoetics of understanding mythological dragons too. And so yeah, both and. Yeah. Back to the rat. The rat is special because the rat rides the neck of the dragon. And so he's able to kind of like whisper in the ear, like, this is where we should go. This is how we should do it. This is, that's the dynamic between the rat and the dragon. And also, this is another thing, rat dragon is one of the 3 traditional times that we say the new year begins. So the first day of the Lunar New Year is actually the first day of the tiger month. But the other, so it's like kind of the spring. We usually say that the lunisolar year begins in spring. And this matches with other natural earth wisdom calendars, like the Hebrew calendar and the Celtic calendar, etc. There's a lot of ones that well, actually, I guess the Hebrew calendar, we're saying the new year comes in the autumn, which is one of the times that the Chinese also say that the new year begins. So there's an autumn beginning, there's a midwinter beginning, and there's a springtime beginning. And rat is midwinter. So there's like a freshness. So for this year, since it's a dragon year, there's a freshness and a sort of like rat quality right now, even though it's a tiger year, just because rats are about beginnings. So, yeah, because rats know how to work within that yawning openness of winter solstice time. That's the message. Rat time is midnight. It's when you're like burrowed in. Okay, so I think rats are going to be fine. Next. I hope that you guys are seeing the pictures. Do you like the pictures? Are we loving the pictures? Yeah. So this is AI. And I was gonna say, I'm so sorry, or I was actually gonna say, I can't use this because it's AI and I want to support a person. And then I was like, no, the lesson of the young wood dragon year is like, get over that inflexible thinking. Like AI is here. It is not going away. I may not love it. I find like when I try to actually ask questions of AI that I actually know something about, I really see how horrible AI is. It is horrible. And I don't think it's going to get better because it's just dumping more and more of itself into itself. It's an issue. It is an issue, but it's also, it's here, so let's just enjoy these beautiful AI images together and express, and also let's also support our local artists and put nice handmade art on our walls, or in our ears, and go listen to people play. Anyway, okay, you get it. Okay, ox. Oh, ox. How many oxen do we have? Can I get y'all give me the thumbs up on the screen, please? Oxen in here? Oh, just one. Ooh, okay, just one. Nobody outlasts an ox. Yeah, it's powerful. Do we have any biters, any takers on Zoom? Kind of hard to tell. Okay. So for all of you oxen out there, you know, like the magic of the ox is the capacity to get into a field and go all the way to the end and then come back and then do it again 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 and then do it again. Like nobody else can do that. It's really amazing. And it's like, just look at how much muscle. Do you guys ever go to like, you know, Ardenwood or something and see those farms where you actually get to see like real oxen that they yoke up to do things with? They're doing like historical demonstrations for the kiddos and they plow with an ox. Those are some very, very, very large animals. They are very large. So, yeah, but this dragon, dragon time, I don't think that that ox really understand that there's a need for occasional reevaluation and course correction. You know, it just doesn't really occur to them because they're just feeling that groove and they're just using all that muscle. I mean, if I had a body to use like that, I wouldn't need to like go other places either. It's like I would have that body to use. So I get it, but no, oxen don't really notice the shift in the chi quality, and it's really hard for them to adjust. So this is a year for you know, just hide, rest, you know, just rest. And I mean, it doesn't matter. Like oxen are just, they're just going to keep going on the trajectory that feels right to them anyway. So it doesn't even matter that I'm saying this in a way. And of course, obviously don't get panicky, right? Also, all of this is it's just one of so many factors. We've got a whole natal astrology too, which is also saying other things. So if you're having difficulty, then, you know, maybe there's a conversation or a reorientation that needs to happen. But for people, for any animal that's having a tougher year, just rest and ride it out and try not to be a dragon if your chi is not compatible with the dragon. And that's fine. Just be yourself, you know. There's room for all the animals in all 12 years. All right. So let's go on to the tiger. Also not the easiest year. Not the easiest year for the tiger. How many tigers do we have? We have a tiger. All right. And she's roaring. Okay, tigers are confused in a dragon year because tigers are very, very strong, like the dragon. They're very, very strong, and they're really confused that the year has a different nature. But it's not for lack of like agility the same way that it was for the ox. It's more like it wants to try to like compete with the dragon or match its energy and be like, oh, we're doing like a big year. I can do a big year. That's kind of what the tiger wants to do. And the tiger just kind of needs to chill and like not, you know, and actually happens the other way around. Dragons often have a hard time in tiger years because they're like, I'm big, nothing can stop me. And, you know, they try to like drag it out. And it's just like a really big problem for them too. You know, dragons try to act like a tiger in tiger year. Tigers try to act like a dragon in dragon year. And it just doesn't really work. So tigers, what you have is a black stripe. You've got the orange stripe, the pulsation out into the world of doing and charisma and just like world bridging that you do. I think of that big paw that can just like take down an entire deer. It's so unbelievably powerful. So don't use that. Use the black stripe. The black stripe is retreat, rest, meditation. In fact, if you can go into that darkness and into that meditation zone, then you can have absolutely enormous visionary information to receive. It's just not the time to pulse out with it into the world. Yeah, so that's the tiger. I've got a little tiger at home. So yeah, and it's kind of like for the tiger, tigers are focused, right? tigers are amazing. They bridge worlds because they see what worlds they want to bridge and how. Like they can come up with an enormous plan. Whereas dragons are more like the sky. They're like all of the conscious, all of the known, all of the light world is the dragon world. So it's more comprehensive, it's less focused. It's tigers are erratic in a way, but they also, when they want to focus, they focus and then they pull back and just rest. It's different, you know. So tap into your inner enormity, meditate and stuff. We've got a question.
Somebody's asking, what is the meaning of the plus and minus signs on the sides?
Oh, that's like available chi. Like, so if where you see that I've got plus, it's like really good, lots of available energy. We're not going to say it's a good year or a bad year or an auspicious year or an inauspicious year. So those pluses and minuses are telling us about available chi. There's really not a such thing as like an auspicious or inauspicious year. It's like auspicious for what? It's like, is it the day to sign the paperwork? Is it the day to rest? It's like if you manage your expectations about the kind of projects you're supposed to be doing, then things will go very well even on an inauspicious day, right? So that was a very good question. Thank you. And then we have some people are going to have plus, some are going to have plus minus, like good and bad, you know, and others are going to have minus. So, okay. Next. The rabbits. Okay. Rabbits, I have a lot of rabbit friends. Rabbits get completely freaked out about a dragon year. Oh, and you should have heard them about the tiger year. I don't know what God was thinking when he smushed rabbit between, I'm like totally tongue in cheek with that, when he smushed rabbit between tiger and dragon. Like what I actually, that's one that I'm still working on, you know. Maybe I'll have like an important dream that will explain to me why the chi progression, because you know there is something natural. I'll probably have it, I don't know, I should have it worked out by now because we just did tiger, rabbit, dragon. I understand yeah, I'm still working on it. Obviously, I'm still clearly working on it because
2072.
by 2072 I'll have it figured out. Yes. Thank you. Good one. Right. So rabbits they were totally freaked out in the tiger year. I think that they met this year really well. So I just want to say congratulations, rabbits. You did a big thing and you helped us a lot and you reassured us. Do we have rabbits in the room today? Okay, yay. Good. Any rabbits on? Let me know if you see any rabbits who want to pop up their hands online, Adam.
There's some.
Oh, some rabbits. Ooh, coming out and telling us about themselves. They're proud. They're proud of their work. Good. Good. So dragon year is a little overwhelming, but actually, you just did so much and your intuition led you to where you are right now. The relationship that you're in right now, your intuition led you there. So just trust it. You can kind of relax. It's really not bad. Oh, and I have actually, this is good. I have a couple of clients who I think are listening who I know are dragons with rabbit hours or rabbits with dragon hours. So, you know, you can really feel this bridge right now and it'll tell you, you can, you know, use this to think about your early life. And so yeah, rabbits. This past year was empowering. Rabbits really reminded us how to move gently and employ our own intuition. So we all just got a really big dose of rabbit medicine and learning to use our intuition. And we're going to need it for this dragon year. And dragon year is going to expose us to so much. It'll be very interesting to feel the role of intuition as we progress through a dragon year into a snake year, because snake year, like rabbit level, is the subconscious. Dragon level is the overarching superconscious and conscious, you know, and then snake is the deep unconscious. It's below intuitive level. It's just the undercurrent underneath it all. It's very powerful stuff. So we're going there next. So it'll be interesting to see that, how that works. So yeah, rabbits, if you really met this year and worked your relationships, formed them, braked them, negotiated them, whatever it was, and you should be well positioned. Okay. Next, dragons. I wrote, so productive and amazing, prospects abound, but OMG, please calm down. So yeah, there's this idea in Chinese thought of like a good luck, bad luck year. Like the year that your baby is born is a good luck, bad luck year, because it's like, I mean, obviously your baby was born, it's a good luck year, but also, oh my God, you just gave birth and that was like, it's really hard and you have to recover. And I mean, like your whole entire world, I'm looking at some moms in the room and, like your whole world is changed and it's kind of upsetting and it's a bit of a trauma, even if it goes really well. So that's an example, like moving houses. I just moved houses this year, but good luck, bad luck year, right? So for dragons, it's like I put plus plus, and it is a plus plus because your chi as this dragon native, you dragons out there. Oh, any dragons in here? Ah, oh, dragon with a snake vibe who didn't want to tell me.
That's right.
And let me know if anyone says they're a snake online. I mean not a snake, a dragon online. Oh, there's some, okay. So the dragons, like you've got this natal dragon chi that you're carrying with you through all of these years. And now boom, you're in a year that has dragon year. So you're dragon in dragon. So you can move very freely. You can accomplish a lot. It's very like productive, but don't take that in the American sense. It's like productive as in like you can bring, ooh, wow, I just made bubbles, not bubbles, balloons come up by using my hands in a certain way. That was surprising. Not productive in that American way. It's productive in that like chi can, like karmic things can resolve themselves. When you're in a year or even just a day, like if you're watching the Tongshu, the Chinese almanac, and you notice, okay, it's dragon day, look at what you do. See how it flows more smoothly. And you can like, oh, all that stuff I've been struggling with, boom, 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 boom. It gets done, right? Now, dragons are so amazing that they never really have hardly any awareness of any of these obstacles because they're dragons. They're, like you said, they're supernatural creatures, so they can sort of do anything. But everyone else is hearing me because everyone who's not a dragon knows what that obstruction kind of feels like. So dragons are just going to be really free reign, easy for them to move, easy for them to get really excited about new prospects, use big scale thinking, try to organize it, although dragons don't necessarily organize things necessarily. Just try to maybe don't do it all in one day, That's my advice for dragons. Because it can feel so easy to just be yourself that you can end up doing so much that you can just get tired. So it's a plus year, but also careful there. Yeah. Wood dragons, happy 60th birthday. I know that I've got some out there. I'm looking at the camera. I know I've got some wood dragons out there. Oh, by the way, now you're kind of considered to be an adult because you made it through the complete set of 60 years, but you've only done a yin or a yang version. You have to get all the way to 120 to really get the full wisdom expression. So yeah, so see to your self-care so that you can make it to the 120 mark. And earth dragons are 36 this year. Earth dragons, everyone really look to your earth dragon friends because earth dragons really have that kind of like calm, well-resourced energy that like dragons, the key about dragons in an earth year, dragons having an earth native element is what it means is that dragons like to be well-resourced. And when they're not well-resourced, they can kind of like freak out and they can freak out other people or just scare them because dragon energy is so big. So the earth dragons are the ones who are like, I got this, like, it's cool. So they're all turning 36 this year. So they're special in that, special part of life, right? Fire dragons, 48. These are our kind of like anxious, ruthless dragons. Be gentle with us. I think that fire dragons are sometimes in denial about that anxiety level of like the elements moving backwards. for them because they are so incredibly good at everything that they're doing. And they tend to manage that anxiety with counterphobic activity of like, okay, I'm so worried about everything working out that I'm going to do everything with excellence right now. Like, what do you mean I'm nervous? So fire dragons, they're 48 this year. And water dragons, they're either 72 or 12. And I'm going to say whether you have a 12-year-old or a 72-year-old water dragon, you should just listen to them because they both have wisdom. The 12 and the 72-year-olds alike. There's a special maturity, and they can really nurture that maturity and wisdom this year, and they understand how to pace themselves well. So that's dragon. Next we have snake. I wrote, you already like to hide in plain sight. Perfect. Done. Kind of, like snakes, it's like a plus minus year. It's not really necessarily a very productive or easy year for snakes to do snake things. But it's not like really a problem for them. Snakes are often regarded as oppositional energy, like the way I was saying that the dragon is the sky or all of the consciousness, and then snakes are the unconscious. It's kind of like light and dark, like positive space, negative space. So they're sort of the same. They mirror each other. So if dragon is the light of consciousness, snake is the deep unconscious or the underworld experience. And so it's not a great year, but it's not really dangerous, and they can just retreat, which is what they do anyway, whether they're actually retreating and going away or whether they're like watching Netflix for episode after episode, but like looking through the screen, doing inner alchemy, actually, just without knowing it, or whether they're like, just standing there talking to you and, you're saying, yes, I did see the news, but you're learning nothing about who they really are because they're hiding. So it's the same. They're just going to snakes are going to do the same thing. Really, that's like, we could just summarize this whole thing. Everyone's going to do the same thing. So anyway, for snakes, it shouldn't be too harmful, but it also won't be super productive. Okay, next. Oh, we said we have, did we say we have a snake in here? Yes, we did. Oh, hi. Yes. You were hiding in plain sight. Okay. Horses. Do we have any horses? Just me? Do we have any horses online? Any horse people out there for me? All I can say, ooh, I see a hand. Is that a question hand or is that an I'm a horse hand? I don't know which. Horses, finally, like the last several years have not really been for horses, but it's like, this is actually a year that's better, possibly better than it is for dragons. Horses do really, really well in a dragon year. And the reason is because they're fast and magical and spirited and independent, but they have their feet on the ground and they're in the barnyard, so they can really bring that visionary dragon quality down into practical use, and they just really like to work really hard. So caution horses, I put plus because it's supposedly so good for them, but horses do have a very serious problem with overworking. Adam, can you attest? Yeah. Horses have a real issue with overworking. And so horses, like, you got to remember that you're not a dragon. Maybe it should have been plus minus. I don't know. But the horses are really helpful to others this year. So, Ming says, in a dragon year, make friends with the dragons. Ming says in the dragon year, make friends with the horses because they'll be practical, and they know how to like think in relation to the group. They're kind of like herd animals that aren't herd animals. Like they're herd animals, but they also want to like you can hook them to a plow, but it's not recommended. And you can ride them into battle, but if they get a chance to run away, they will. This is the nature of the horse. So it's a really good year. You can, they can do ordinary tasks and help you on your team. They'll submit for a while, but also they'll have like some good ideas, and they'll have the intelligence and courage to match the dragon quality around them. But like, they're a little bit overpowered. They're a little bit OP for the barnyard, but they'll enjoy not being so restrained as they have been lately. And so if you have horse friends that you were like, oh, I really thought, she was an idiot. It's because it probably was just like not their year. And so revisit and revisit invite your horse friends over. Because they are social. Okay, goat. Oh, my goats. Goats are so good about thinking about the group, and dragon time is just not a time to think about the group. So goats just need to conserve, and like whatever it was that they worked out over the past several years, there have been some okay years for the goat recently. And some of them it's been a little bit good, a little bit bad. But they've kind of worked out over the past couple of years, that's good. Stay there. No big changes. Do we have any goats? Any other goats? Yeah. I was raised by goats and lived with goats and socialized with goats because I was in a different grade in school, and so I know goat tea very deeply. I have a fondness for goats. I'm with the goat. Yeah, so just and the issue is that goats are very strong and they're very strong-willed, but they're not as flexible for change, but just in a different way than ox and tiger. They're well, tiger's flexible to change. That was different than ox. Okay, so goat tea is very helpful for cooperation, and they're very caring for their group. But dragon is about individuals and specific interest groups. So just do what you've been doing and listen to your friends. You'll be fine. He's a dragon back there too. You're not alone. Okay. Yeah. Next. Oh yeah, this one's interesting. Monkey. Okay. Do we have any monkeys? Ooh, a monkey. Wonderful. Do we get any monkeys online? Yay, monkeys. Okay, hello, monkeys. All right. Oh. Monkeys figure out who they are by playing at what they are not. They're always swapping out their hats and changing costumes and saying, no, really, this is like who I really am authentically. And then next week they're doing something different. And this is because this is just how they explore. They're not lying. They're exercising their profound capacity for reinvention. And they're able to get themselves out of very slippery situations using this agility and this flexibility. So they're very clever. They're very inventive. It's a great year for that. Dragon year is very appropriate for being able to change on the turn of a dime, and being able to just completely rework things. And, in fact, monkeys can help people a lot this year. The way that you're going to invite all the horses to your party, you should also invite monkeys, because they'll have a creative solution that no one else would be able to come up with. And this is how monkeys stay out of danger. And, there's like some sort of intense stuff happening in the world. So we're going to need our monkey problem solvers. Questions? Okay. All right. Next we have the rooster. Okay. Rooster, it's like a plus minus year. It's not the easiest year, but since you'll be paying close attention, roosters are the ones who are they're the intelligent ones, and they're the ones who want to tell you about it. It's not like all the other animals don't know that the sun is about to rise, but they're the ones who communicate about that fact. Which is great. Like, we need good communicators, and we need people who are paying attention to those subtle shifts. Like, roosters don't need that little chat about knowing when the season is, because they already know the problem with the Gregorian year, because they probably already heard about it somewhere, because they're studying or they're paying attention, one or the other. Like, whether they're just innately intelligent. And they're also able to kind of like see all the garbage that's already happened in the 12-year cycle. I mean, we've already just talked about, they're the 10th out of 12. We've just talked about 12 profiles, 10 profiles, and they've seen all the nonsense. And especially coming after monkey, they're like, no. This needs to stop. This like up, down, and around needs to stop. Like, let's go for what works here and pay attention. They have to pay attention to be able to do that. And that is the part that helps them in the dragon year. Because otherwise it's not really the easiest year for the rooster. So, not a big deal. You'll be able to make it work. Okay. And then second to last, we have dog. Any dogs in the room? Oh, we have a dog. Hello. Okay. Yeah. How many dogs do we have on there?
It's like a lot.
A lot of dogs. Okay, hello dogs. Okay, well, the dog love language is loyalty, and dragons don't really speak that language. Dogs are, it's interesting because this is a Chinese system. Think about how much the Chinese prize loyalty, familial piety, ancestor worship, staying in line, knowing how to like get into your lane and stay there. Like there is this really profound honor bound aspect that we see in the dog nature that, boy, we really tend to lack in America, at least, in a lot of Western countries, that it's such an important loyalty is such an important value for the Chinese, and this is the dog's superpower, loyalty. And yet this is a year where like allegiances need to be checked. The question is, are you being loyal to something or someone unworthy of your dedication? And can you let yourself off the hook? Are you going to be able to like live with yourself if you make a change about what you want, about how you want to live, which means it means like really deep foundational work can happen. And you'll be able to go more into that in the snake year, when everyone is going to be looking at the foundations and the underworld stuff and the shadow stuff in the snake year. But dogs will start to go, wait, I thought everything was oriented around this or that person or this relationship or this teacher or this system. And it might be like a time to question that. And we actually see this same teaching come up in the Chinese Polestar, the natal, not the almanac stuff, but the Polestar stuff, because everybody has the rebel star come up somewhere. And again, like if you don't do the rebellion in the right time, in the right way in your chart, you will always live with regret. That doesn't mean that we all want to go crazy with rebelliousness and undermine the fabric of our society. This is a Confucian, Taoist, Buddhist system that acknowledges that we're better when we work together. So loyalty still matters. Dog, you'll be fine. Just hang out and allow yourself, but give yourself the chance to ask those questions. And sometimes a change in loyalty doesn't necessarily need to happen, but give yourself permission to ask that question. That would be my advice. Okay. Finally, we have pig, and I know that there's a little pig who's running around there somewhere with his friends. Any other pigs in here? Ooh, pig energy. Great. Good year for the pig. Good year for the pig. When in doubt, chill out. Pigs are the last sign in the cycle. Not surprised by a lot. And so their adaptability means that they're able to really just relax into worldly enjoyment. And also bring everybody else back to that. Like same way that the rabbits, we all learned in the rabbit year how important our relationships were. And we learned that we remembered the necessity to refine our intuition. Pigs can offer dragons the opportunity and all of us in this year, not to take it all so seriously, but to just kind of like chill out and, just taste this tea. Just taste this tea. That's the, sometimes when you're in the middle of a really big situation, whether it's something really amazing and beautiful and wonderful happening, or if it's something really horrible and scary or tragic happening, you still just, like, did you taste the tea? You got to eat. You still got to rest. So pigs will remind us of that. Yes. And so thank you. That concludes my presentation of the Young Wood Dragon 2024. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so honored to be doing this with Yuan Circle. It means so much to me to have had Liu Ming in my life and to have had these kernels continue to ripen and bring so much beauty to my life. I'm just so unbelievably grateful. And so there's information for how to contact me for anyone who wants to in the future. And please continue to follow Yuan Circle and what they're doing as well. And I'd be happy to. I'm sorry I didn't get to see everybody's faces because I did the slideshow version this year. But I know you're all in there. So I just want to say hi and thank you for being part of this big dragon body.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you. Good.